You're at the pump, watching the numbers climb. You've heard it for years now, a constant refrain. America is pumping over 30 million barrels of crude oil every single day. More than any country in history, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia. We are, by volume, the undisputed heavyweight champion of oil production. So why does filling your tank still feel like a financial wound? This is the paradox. The fountain is gushing, but the price at the spigot is still high. This isn't a simple story of supply and demand. It's a story about a hidden labyrinth, a system of pipes, politics, and profit margins that stands between that gushing American fountain and the gasoline in your car. This is the energy historian, uncovering the hidden systems that power civilization. Think of it like this. America's oil fields are a powerful, roaring engine. But your car's gas tank isn't connected directly to that engine. It's connected to a transmission. And that transmission, the refining system, the pipelines, the distribution networks, the global market, has its own rules, its own frailties, and its own price. The engine can be at full throttle, and the transmission can still slip. So the real question isn't how much oil we have. The real question is, what happens to it between the wellhead and your Honda? Let's start with the first gear in that transmission, the refinery. This is where crude oil, that thick, black sludge, gets cracked, cooked, and transformed into gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. It's an alchemical process, and it's also a massive bottleneck. Here's a number that changes everything. In 1981, the United States had 324 refineries. Today, we have 135. We more than halved our refining capacity. Now, we didn't close them because we were producing less oil. We closed them in a wave of consolidation, chasing efficiency. It was cheaper, for a long time, to import some refined gasoline from abroad than to maintain a sprawling, redundant network at home. That decision, made for quarterly profits decades ago, haunts us every hurricane season. Because a refinery isn't a light switch. It's a small, fiery city of steel that operates at over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. You can't just turn it on and off. It runs 24/7 for years, and shutting it down for maintenance is a multi-million-dollar months-long operation. This creates a system with zero slack. There is no spare refinery sitting idle, waiting for a crisis. Every drop of capacity is being used. So when one of these complex plants goes offline unexpectedly, a fire in Indiana, a freeze in Texas, a hurricane in Louisiana, the entire national system gasps. The fountain of crude keeps flowing, but suddenly there's no place to turn it into gasoline, and the price, sensitive to the slightest tremor, spikes. This brings us to the second, even more critical piece, the pipeline labyrinth. Crude oil from the Permian Basin in Texas isn't any good to a driver in Baltimore unless you can get it there. And we built our pipeline map for a different world. For decades, the flow went inland, from the Gulf Coast up to the Midwest. But the shale revolution changed the geography of American oil. It started coming from places like North Dakota and West Texas. The pipelines to move it to the refineries, and then the refined gasoline to the coasts, didn't always exist. We've been playing catch-up. The fragility of this labyrinth was exposed brutally in May of 2021. A ransomware attack. Not on an oil field, but on the billing system of the Colonial Pipeline Company. The company shut the pipeline down as a precaution for just 6 days. That single pipeline carries nearly half the gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel for the entire East Coast. The result wasn't a shortage of crude oil. The fountain was still gushing, but the main artery was clamped shut. Panic buying emptied stations from Georgia to New Jersey. Prices soared. It was a perfect fever chart of systemic risk. The price spike had almost nothing to do with the global oil supply, and everything to do with the fragility of a single critical piece of infrastructure. Now, let's add the third gear, the global market. This is where the paradox gets truly twisted. The United States is the world's largest oil producer. It is also one of the world's largest oil exporters. In 2015, Congress lifted the 40-year-old ban on crude oil exports. So that light, sweet crude from Texas, it can be loaded onto tankers in Houston and sold to the highest bidder in Europe or Asia. American oil is no longer just for Americans. It is a global commodity. So the price you pay at the pump in Ohio isn't set by the cost of producing oil in Texas. It's set by the global benchmark, Brent crude. If there's a war in Ukraine that disrupts Russian supplies, Brent prices jump. If OPEC Plus decides to cut production to prop up prices, Brent prices jump. And the American oil producer, logically, will sell their barrel to the refiner in Rotterdam, who's paying that higher Brent price, rather than to the refiner in Louisiana, who's paying less. The local advantage evaporates. We are swimming in oil, but we are swimming in the same ocean as everyone else, subject to the same global tides and storms. This leads to the regional price madness. Why is gasoline consistently $1 or more per gallon in California than in Texas? It's not the crude, it's the transmission. California's refineries are tuned to produce a unique, cleaner-burning gasoline blend mandated by the state's air regulations. Few refineries outside the state make it, so California exists on an island of its own making. If one of its few major refineries has a problem, there's no easy way to import replacements. The state's gasoline inventory is like a shallow bathtub. A small drain causes the water level to plummet. The fountain of national crude production is irrelevant to this isolated, brittle system. So, we have a series of bottlenecks: refining bottlenecks, pipeline bottlenecks, regulatory bottlenecks. And at the end of this chain sits the final, often overlooked player, the retail station. Their margin is the smallest slice of the pie, but their sign is the most visible. When crude prices rise, that sign changes almost instantly. But when crude prices fall, there's a curious lag. The station paid a high price for the fuel in their underground tanks. They won't sell it at a loss. They'll lower the price slowly as they receive new, cheaper shipments. You feel this asymmetry in your bones. Prices rocket up, but they float down like a feather. We've built a system optimized for efficiency, not resilience. We closed refineries for cost savings. We connected our production to the global market for higher profits. We let regional fuel specifications balkanize our supply chains. Each decision made perfect sense on a spreadsheet at the time, but collectively, they built a transmission that is incredibly sensitive to friction. The engine is stronger than ever, but the gears are worn, specialized, and few in number. A shock anywhere in the world, or a breakdown in any single state, sends a vibration through the whole machine, and you feel it in your wallet. The real question then shifts. It's no longer, why is gas expensive if we have oil? The real uncomfortable question is, what are we actually producing? Are we producing national energy security, or are we producing a lucrative export commodity? Are we building infrastructure for resilience, or for maximum shareholder return? The system is working exactly as designed. It's just that its purpose isn't solely to give you cheap gasoline. Its purpose is to monetize a resource within a complex, interconnected, and often fragile global web. You're not just paying for the crude. You're paying for the risk, the bottlenecks, and the hidden leverage in every mile of pipe and every degree of heat in a refinery's furnace. The fountain is gushing, but the price of admission to the labyrinth was never about the water. It was about the walls.